What's up guys, it's Kayla here from How to Rip. Today we're going to be talking about surfing on your backhand. Let's jump into it. If you're new here, this is Lesson of the Week, a show where we release a new surf tip every single week. Make sure you subscribe to the channel now. You wouldn't want to miss out, would you? Okay, well first off, let's define what backhand surfing is. Well, simply put, backhand surfing is when you surf with your back to the wave, whereas forehand surfing is where you surf with your front to the wave. Super easy. Okay, the first tip we're going to go through when it comes to surfing on your backhand is to lean onto your heels first. It sounds really simple, but what we need to do is actually emphasize our movements within our brain, make them very, very conscious. So our efforts to actually use our feet to control the direction in which we're moving on a wave, it has to be really conscious and at the forefront of our mind. You'll notice in these clips that when I'm taking off on a wave, the first action that I do after looking down the line is to actually hop up and lean my weight onto my heels first. And that gets that inside rail carving into the face of the wave so that I can begin to move in the correct direction. As we've spoken about in previous videos, it's really important to use your heels, your ankles, your knees, your hips, and the rest of your body to actually undulate across the wave to create the right amount of speed that you need to use the natural shape of the wave. And that all starts on your backhand with that initial shift onto your heels, that initial lift up the face of the wave and then down so that you can build all the speed that you need for the rest of the wave. Alrighty, tip number 2 is to use your leading hand to point where you want to go. Again, we've spoken about this in previous videos and it's a really important lesson, especially on your backhand. I always find that when I use my leading hand, so again, if I'm moving this way on a wave, my back's towards the actual wave itself, if I'm using this front hand here, which you'll see highlighted on the screen, to actually point my way across the wave and back down as I do maneuvers, it's actually a really powerful stimulus in order for my whole body to follow in that same direction. Obviously, just pointing to a certain part of the wave is not going to make you suddenly appear there, but what it tends to do is to actually initiate that whole kinetic chain of events in your entire body, your hips, your knees, your ankles, your shoulders, to actually follow through. So we use that front hand strategically. And use it very consciously. You don't need to be crazy and sort of point like this and look a little bit silly. You actually just use it in a stylish way. So you notice on my waves that I actually use this hand to come up the wave and do my turns. And it's the same with pumping as well. It's up and down. That hand flows the whole time. Tip number 3 is to use the coiled spring analogy. We've used this before. It's that building up of tension in your body so that you can release the energy of the coiled spring into your turns, into your speed generation, or just into your simple flow along the wave. To generate this coiled spring momentum and energy, you want to stay low. And this is something that's probably even more important on your backhand because it can be harder to actually generate speed and to get around sections and flow along the way. So we like to tell surfers to stay really low. And I asked a professional surfer to explain how a backhand bottom turn worked. He said it's almost like you're sitting in a chair as you lean up towards the back of the wave, and your bum should almost be touching the wave surface. That's how low he was getting. So staying low in this coiled spring position, that energy build up before you release it at the top of the wave, is going to be a really powerful tool for you to use with your backhand surfing. Alrighty, tip number 4, this is a big one. Keep your eye on the section. It sounds really basic, doesn't it? But it's a very fundamental skill in surfing. Taj Burrows says, look where you want to go on a wave. we say look and then point with your leading hand. So by keeping an eye on what the wave is doing, it's actually enabling us to shift our body in a certain position that's going to better enable us to respond to any given section on a wave. On your backhand, it's particularly important to do this because you're facing more away from the wave. On our forehand, it's easier to see the section. If the wave was in front of me here, I would naturally be looking at that section. But if you notice, if the wave was behind me, I have to turn a lot more. So it's more of a conscious decision to keep my eye on what the wave is doing. In that way, I'm not going to miss as many sections when I do my turns. I'm going to generate speed when I should. I'm going to do turns when I should. I'm going to do the right turns in the right sort of section on the wave. It's a really simple skill that we need to remember on our backhand. Keep your eye on the wave and know what the wave is going to do to the best of your ability. This sort of leads into my final tip here. Tip number 5, spend your speed points wisely. Spend your speed wisely. We talked about this in How to Rip Tooth. I'll link the video here. This is a really, really important skill. Generating speed often happens at the start of the wave, but it also happens coming out of your turns. There's always going to be a balance between generating speed and expending speed throughout your entire ride. And what we recommend is that you get in tune with the right way to do that, the right balance, so to speak. If you're going to generate, say, 10 speed points with your first initial pump, we're going to shift onto the heels, we're going to generate 10 speed points, but then we want to do a turn that is going to cost us 10 speed points, something like a reverse or something, we can expect we're not going to get much more out of the wave. Now, something that you could do, for instance, is to generate those 10 points at the start of the wave and then actually spend those points on 3 turns instead. So 3.3 points on one turn, 3.3 on another, and then 3.3 on the final turn. It just depends how you want to approach the wave. You notice that the best surfers tend to flow between turns. They get all their speed points, they do their turns, they build more speed points throughout their turns, and they tend to flow effortlessly. And that's really the sort of surfing that we want to cultivate, that look of effortless flow. And we can do that when we spend our speed points wisely. Don't overdo turns in too small a section. Just do the right turn for the right section and watch your surfing progress. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. My name is Cal Rock, and you should subscribe to How to Rip. Make sure you comment below as well to let us know what else you want to see on the channel. There's a few ways right now. I'm going to hop on the fish and get out there. I'll see you later.